Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Joe Chabot.
Before I begin at all, it's only proper that I fully cite my sources for my resources of this presentation. This haircut was attributed to the fine barber skills of Greg Bauman and 4 minutes last night. Thank you. Okay. So, 1. Small number. Especially when there's 1 million per every mile on this tiny little island. 1's a little bit insignificant. 1 is intimidating to some people in business. 1 is a threat. But to one man, 1 was the strategy. 1 man redefined what it meant to be the best. 1 man created 1 company that employed 100,000 Americans. 1 man took up 2% of the entire United States GDP. That's more than the current contributions of Rhode Island, Vermont, Delaware, Idaho, Maine, and Montana combined. 1 man. And this 1 man is John D. Rockefeller. John D. Rockefeller has his name on the building that GE is housed in. He had, in essence, a command about his stare. But he wasn't a tyrant. He was not simply a mogul of business, although he is known as the greatest oil tycoon in history, and some say the best businessman in history. He was not born a captain of industry. He was not born leader of the world of oil. He was a child at one point. Everyone is. But he was often described as a little adult. His peers didn't like him much. He was quiet, focused, meticulously organized. He got this from his mother, who had a slight OCD. But this only aided him in the future. The truth, guys. Speaking guys. And for the PPE majors who need a little bit of a method behind the money, at age 15, a Baptist pastor told John Rockefeller that the only thing and the best thing you should do in life is make as much as you can, save as much as you can, but then give as much as you can. And John Rockefeller, in hindsight, saw this as the start of his life's philosophy. So he went on, and his first job at age 18, well, right before his 18th birthday, actually, he became a junior bookkeeper. And this was a minuscule job. He went for a big company, but this job paid merely 50 cents an hour. But he threw himself into it with, it was said, missionary perseverance. Something that it took like in seminary. That's how dedicated he was to this. He scrutinized books long hours at night, searching until he found errors in the pennies. He was baffled by the carelessness and mediocrity of the work of those who hired him, that they could miss such errors. So he scrutinized those books until they were perfect. But this bored him. He was, after all, an innovator and someone who needed to go on to bigger and better things. So from there, he went into commodity trading at age 18, beef and wheat at the time. This was a risky endeavor that not even grown, experienced businessmen would like to venture out into, but he did it. But he was bored of that a year later and then saw the opportunity that would make him his fortune. The backfields of Pennsylvania, oil was struck. And while thousands would reach up and run to go get their millions, John Rockefeller didn't go out and stab holes in the ground randomly. He was a man of careful planning. He didn't take foolish risks. While everyone else was buying guns, he manufactured bullets. He went for what's it called? He went for the purification of oil. So he, in Cleveland at the time, built his plant right near the railroad, right between the source and where they needed to get it refined. So this is his first refinery that he built at the age of 24. When people are just coming out of grad school, he had his first refinery. And then 6 years later, Standard Oil began. Now, although he quickly rose with this refinery to become the most successful in the country, that wasn't enough for him. Not at all. So he employed this new strategy. This new strategy is horizontal integration. And what he did was built a wall through his entire industry that every single oil producer had to pass through. His style of business was kill the competition. It was once quoted that he said, "Competition is a sin." That's how passionate he was about it. There was 4 months in the year of 1872 where every single competitor in Cleveland was bought out by Andrew Carnegie. Look at your influence me. By John D. Rockefeller. His style of negotiating was he would walk into an office, lay down his finance records, open them, back up. They would look at the records and realize that competing was futile. And if they still weren't convinced, he said, "Okay, I'm going to slowly run you out of business and then buy your shares up for cheap in a public auction," and would walk out. So slowly he bought out the competition one by one until he owned almost all of it. This is a quote by John D. Rockefeller. He said that he would rather benefit by 1% of 100 people's efforts than by 100% of his own efforts. And this became very easy as Standard Oil grew because their stock was more valuable than money at the time. This man was quickly becoming the most powerful man in America, and all he did was sit back and watch as his business grew. He also quoted that few things bring him as much pleasure as watching his dividends come in. But as I said before, there is a method behind the money. He was not an evil man who collected money for the sake of collecting money. Another quote by him actually said, "There's nothing more despicable and pathetic than a man who devotes all hours of the day to making money for money's sake." He also said, if your only goal is to be rich, you will never achieve it. His goal was to give, and give of everything that he had. By the time he was retiring, his son had 50% of his wealth. And 50% of that wealth, which is valued today at $660 billion US dollars, enough to give a $100 bill to everyone in this room and everyone else on the planet. He's often considered the most wealthy man to have ever existed and gave that wealth out frequently. When he retired, people saw his charismatic side, his lovingly genial old man that loved to talk to kids at public interviews. He was often noted for keeping a pocket full of diamonds and handing them out to little girls and young women. Because he saw them for what they were. They're shiny rocks that people pay a lot of money for, but they bring smiles to little girls. And that's what he liked. There's video footage of girls walking up to him and they'd say, "Give him a dime, give her a diamond, give her a diamond." And he would say, "Oh, okay." He'd get in his little pocket and he would give diamonds. And now he went from being the man who commanded America through the oil industry to the loving old grandfather. And although there was this genial and very warm-hearted presence about him, he is still defined by his power and his ingenuity and his creative ability to create not just something out of nothing, but to take everything from nothing. So I'm going to end on this one very famous quote by him, which is my personal favorite quote, and that is that I have ways of making money that you know nothing of.